Good morning, Dee. Thank you so much for joining me this morning and agreeing to do the recordings for the patient access supervisor position. I'm really excited to share your information with the WellStar leaders. Are you ready to get it kicked off?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. So the first question I have for you is, have you ever hired an employee?
I have not directly hired an employee, but I have been involved in the staffing process. So once they choose candidates that have applied and they bring them in for interviews, then me, the supervisor, and the manager, we would go in and basically just take turns asking questions, writing down what we feel like the strengths and the weaknesses are. And then after we've interviewed X amount of candidates, we all get together collectively and put our input in, but ultimately it is up to the hiring manager as to which candidate they choose.
Okay, understood. That's fair. And then describe the factors you think are important when hiring somebody. So in addition to their skills for the actual position, what are some things that you look for?
So their experience, the skills, also personality traits. Are we hiring an honest person? Are we hiring someone who is knowledgeable, maybe knows a little bit about the position or the field that they're going into? Also, what type of pay they are asking for, which kind of ties into the experience because typically they pay based off of experience. Um, Always looking for someone dependable that seems like they do fit as part of a team.
I like it. That's important for sure. Can you think of an important decision you've had to make when you've managed a team, and why was that decision critical?
It was actually to let an employee go because I was the direct supervisor between the manager over the department and the employees. And we did have a kind of a bad apple, which was he was a really great person, but as far as work wise, he was not meeting requirements, not meeting deadlines, and just overall performance. And so, although I did work with him for like 2.5, 3 years, we grew a bond. At the end of the day, when I saw that his work ethic was starting to bring the team down, I did have to inform management. We did speak with the employee multiple times. I was the person responsible for quality assurance, so I had multiple talks with him to try to eliminate that process.
Sure.
But eventually we had to let the employee go.
Understood. So it sounds like it was critical because it was bringing the team down. And when you say bringing the team down, that can mean just team morale, as
Mhm.
well as from a metric standpoint, that could also impact the business.
Yep.
So was it both ways or just one or the other?
It was actually both. So the manager that was over me actually did not want to engage with the employee because he was a bit rude to her. And so they would have me speak to them since our relationship seemed more smooth. He was kind of rude to his teammates, and then he would come in and clock in and then like leave back out of the clinic, go park his car, go get coffee, come back in, not take calls or schedule appointments incorrectly, things of that sort. So it was kind of messing with like the metrics, like you said. And then if he wasn't taking calls and logged in, that would leave more calls for the other team members to take, which would cause confusion on the team. And when you have like a team of 20, it can get hectic.
Sure, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. That's tough, and especially when you build a bond with somebody, you
Yeah.
have to learn to separate the two
Mhm.
and make the best decision for the organization.
Yeah.
How would your previous direct reports, so the people reporting to you, how would they describe your supervision style?
Um, they would describe my supervision style as hands on. I'm always like on the floor. As a previous supervisor, I did share an office with someone, but you won't find me in my office. I'm always on the floor. If I can go ahead and take a call, an escalation call for someone, then I'm doing that. I'm making sure everyone has their resources. I'm always training. So I'm very hands on and like very direct with every employee.
That's what we call a servant leader.
Yeah.
All right. Has your supervision style changed over time, and in what way?
I would say it it has improved as far as my specific role and what I have to do. So like the first year of me being a supervisor, I was not very good with like delegating tasks or being firm enough to say, this is what you need to do, this is what you have to do, and separate the two like we stated. So just over the years with that experience and training, I have learned how to delegate tasks better, how to be kind, but also assertive enough to get the job done. So I would just say that I improved personally as a supervisor, but the style is still kind of the same.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just sort of like mold and like you said, improve. And I
Right.
can say that's something that I've had to work on as well as a leader. So I totally get that. Sometimes you're just like, it would be easier for me to just do it myself because I know how, but
Yes.
the delegation part also teaches people how to do things for themselves and also be resourceful. So I really like that's one of the things that has changed over time. I think that's super crucial.
Yes. Thank you.
What are some successful ways you've been able to motivate employees?
Okay, so I am big on acknowledgement. So if an employee has done something really good or like above the others, then I'm sending out a mass email with like a cute meme or celebration stickers. I'm a baker, so I would bring in treats for the team. We did have like an incentive program. So if a supervisor or manager goes in the system and acknowledges an employee for something spectacular that they did, then they would be rewarded a monetary reward on their check. So a few things like that, just rewards, incentives, acknowledgement is, I'm so big on acknowledgement. I
Yes.
always love to give shout outs and let someone know when they're doing something good. And that makes them want to do better.
Yeah, employee engagement is extremely crucial, and that helps retain employees as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, I love that. How do you resolve disputes between employees? And if you haven't had to deal with that, what do you think you would do?
Yeah, so I have personally had to deal with employee disputes. I always like to get both sides of the story. So I will call them in one by one, hear part A, hear part B. I always ask for consent. Is it okay if we both meet in the same setting? Now that I have both stories separately, let's hear what you all have to say together. Okay, what do you all feel like is a resolution and how can we move past this? So I like to have meetings. I love to talk it out. I believe that conversation is key as a supervisor. So I just like to bring everybody together, sort of do like a kumbaya if we can, and
Sure.
figure out a resolution.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you had to deal with an employee who was not performing? Well, I think we answered that question with your critical decision, so I'll just refer to that. And then what do you think are essential qualities of a good supervisor?
Essential qualities, absolutely someone who is dependable. That's like a no-brainer. Someone who does know how to delegate tasks. So someone who can lead the team, because management, everybody has their role to play. As a supervisor, you are the direct report between the employees and then the higher ups. So you have to know how to delegate tasks to help everything run smoothly. Someone who is kind of understanding, but like I said, also assertive enough to say, okay, this needs to be done, or identify weaknesses in the team. Someone who can train up, so build up employees. Someone who is willing to work. So I have been a working supervisor. If we have too many call outs and calls are backed up, patients are not being scheduled, I'll step in and work. Things like that.
What responsibility expectations do you have for the role of a supervisor?
What responsibilities and expectations?
You know what? Maybe I'll get some clarity on that question and we'll move on to the next one. I'm not too sure how to answer that one either. What are your top 3 factors for improving teamwork and success?
So training, always. Make sure that every employee is trained up. Resources. So any policies, handouts, I always make something that's called a Bible, which is like a resource for employees to go in and look at to see different policies and things. And then also support, being on the floor, being readily available when someone needs help, needs assistance, needs someone to take an escalation call, or just resolve something that they can't resolve.
Got it. I like it. How, we already asked that question. I think we already asked that question. Describe your planning process.
So I plan like my day, like planning days or weeks.
Yeah.
I plan my days and weeks by importance. So you always have like your daily tasks of everything you know that needs to get done. But if something of more importance comes in, I make sure I put that task first, get that out the way, and then move on to the next thing.
Okay, I like it. And then how do you welcome and acclimate new employees to your team?
So usually bigger organizations such as Anita that I worked at since I had 20 employees, it would be to take the employee first. We'll send an email out about the new employee, welcome such and such to the team. And if time permits, I like to walk around with that person just so they can generally say hi, introduce them to myself, upper management, and the other employees on their team. Make sure that they have their resources. We usually do like a 2-week check-in, a 30-day, 60-day, make sure that they are being acclimated into their role, and just check to see if there's anything that they need from myself or upper management to do better in their role, or anything that we didn't clarify like during training or anything like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talked a lot about delegating work. How do you delegate work, and how do you determine it's a task that should be delegated?
So everyone has their basic like job title, but there are things that supervisors, managers, and then the team members do. So if it's a task that typically a team member under myself would do, then I do choose the people or person that skills match closer to the task, and I'll hand it out to them. I always explain why the work is being handed out. I always explain like the expected outcome. And that's pretty much how I delegate tasks. Make sure I'm really thorough with my expectations and why the task needs to be done.
And I also think delegating certain tasks, even if it's a teeny bit outside of job descriptions, it helps elevate people too, which helps employee engagement too. So I think you touched on some really good stuff. And then you said you've supervised up to 20 people in the past. And now this is situational. Describe a time when you successfully introduced and led a change initiative in your workplace. What actions did you go through to introduce the change?
So at Amita Health, the clinic was fairly new. So a lot of the workflows did not work for the scheduling team that I was over. I would keep, when team members would come in and say, oh, we don't feel like this is working, we're having this issue, I would keep a note. If I see the same thing starting to occur, then I'm trying to figure out a resolution. So one of the providers had a schedule that was not working with the patients nor the team members. I threw in a suggestion. The manager had us meet with the provider to see how we could change the schedule to better fit the needs of the team and also the patients. After the meeting, they went ahead and approved the change of the schedule. I did change my Bible, my resource, and then we had a team meeting to discuss the new changes in the schedule, and we printed out the new workflow for everybody, and it was resolved.
Very good. I like it. Well, those are all the questions I have for this recording. So I really, really appreciate the time, Dee. Everything you said was so wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.